Alright, today we are going to show you how to turn this tent from Advanced Deployment Dungeon Crate Box 2 into this tent. I thought it'd be cool to go ahead and give it a little more realism for those crafters out there. This is what you got. It came in a burlap bag and it has a couple of pieces that you put together. Also came with a campfire, which I'm going to show you how to do later. So lay out your pieces for the tent here. Looks like you've got two top pieces, of course, and the posts that go there. Notice that at the bottom, the slots are closer to the bottom for the posts that face downwards. That'll be the ground level. And this is pretty easy to do. Just go ahead and put those in. They slide in really easy. They're matched up nicely. They stay in place while you put the other side on, if you can hold on to it. And it doesn't really snap in. It just sets in. So you have to be a little bit careful. But it does stand on its own just as is. So there it is. You can have a blue tent just like that if you're wanting to do that. But what I've done now is I've used hot glue to just glue this together quickly. You can use any glue that you like. It just depends on how soon you want it. I take this popsicle stick. It's not really it's more of a lollipop stick. It's kind of one of those cardboard ones. And you're going to want to measure it off. Now I'm doing this so that I can get a little bit more of a rounded tent pole look at the top rather than the gap that you see right there. You just snip it off with a pair of scissors and make sure it's all fit together. Use a little hot glue. I'm using Old Blue today. As you can see, she's an old but good glue gun. Get in there also, yeah, and just press it down and of course stick it to yourself like that and get it all over the place. Alright, don't do that. You should try and avoid that. But anyways, there you go. So that's what you need. Next, we're going to be taking some hot glue and kind of just lining the edges. This is kind of where you run a bead and then you kind of smear it out just so that there's, again, not really a ton of gap there. And, of course, don't lay it down like that when it's hot because it does tend to stick to your surface. Oh, yeah, see? Look at that. No, you didn't see that, did you? Nope. I'm also using the hot glue gun here to give a little bit of texture to the tent itself. You're hoping that the tent actually stretches, but we're making this out of hide. It's supposed to look like animal hide, so it gives a little bit of wrinkle, a little bit of depth here. And that's easy. Just let that dry. Now I'm using this tissue paper. This is the same kind of paper that you would use in gift boxes. Doesn't matter if it's a little wrinkled. In fact, you want to wrinkle it a little bit more here. Not too much. When you're trying to do some wrinkled old skin, that works, but you'll just want to rip off a piece that's big enough that will fit around there. And I've got a little bit wrinkled, that way it kind of does look like animal hide. Alright, so now what you need, there you can see some of the ripples there, you get some just regular glue-all. Elmer's glue-all. Trying to avoid the school glue. If you get this stuff, it's a little more, it's more strong, but also what I like to do, instead of making a wash for this small of a thing, I just use a wet brush. I dip my brush in the water, and then I kind of, that way it creates a wash right there in your cup. I use these plastic lids a lot, which I just happen to have a bunch of for some reason. So you just want to paint this wash over the areas that you're going to want to coat in the paper, and it's really just the outside. We're just going to be doing the outside. We're not even going to be doing the edges here. We're just going to be doing the outside. So give it a good, make sure you do have some of the glue on there so that it's not just water. If it's too thin, it won't dry properly. And all you have to do is press it down. So pat it down. You don't have to make it smooth because you do want to retain some of the wrinkling there. And it kind of naturally just forms textures that make it, well, it will make it look like animal hide. Just tap it down, make sure it's all attached all around the edges, and then put it in front of a fan or something if you'd like, and it dries fast. Now here you can see that it kind of shrunk or it moved, which is not a big deal. Just go ahead and cut off the excess or just rip it off if you can't go get a pair of scissors. Obviously, there we go. Wait, there, scissors. Look, oh, great, yes. trims it off rather nicely. And so the good thing about this tissue is that it is really easy to blend pieces together without having any super hard noticeable lines. So all you want to do here is just get out the glue wash again, add a little bit more glue wash anyways to the whole thing just to give it a little more strength and to kind of flatten down anything. But the tissue tends to kind of use the water, absorb the water, and it really melts into the rest of the tissue just by tapping it down and working it a little bit. And you just kind of, again, give the whole thing another coat of the glue wash. So by the end of this thing is, of course, nice and sturdy. So that's why you don't need to use a lot of glue at the beginning. So, okay, now we're going to just base coat it with black. Straight up crafting black. And for this process, you'll want to coat it fairly well, and you'll want to do the whole thing. So you're just going to want to go all the outside. You want to do the posts, and you'll want to do the inside as well. And if you use hot glue, this kind of covers up some of the hot glue strings and mess that, of course, that I've made here on the inside of my tent. Now, you may want to face those posts. If you'll notice there, it had some writing on it. You may want to face the post inside so that the writing doesn't come through. So now we're using just a dark brown. We're going to give this kind of its own base coat. And if you have your own colors that you use to create a hide or tents or things like that, then yeah, feel free to use that same technique. I'm just doing this for simplicity. And you can get as elaborate as you want with this, but once the texture's in there, this is the really easy part. So just coat it all in brown. I'm going to use a little bit lighter color brown, more like a camel. And I'm going to just take this, and I've got some more out there too. It's kind of like a gray tan. But this is going to be the beginning of the dry brushing. You just want to use a little bit of a dry brush on this, and it should dry a little bit darker. But start going over lightly at first, and then start working your way down. If you want a little bit lighter color overall, then you can start toning it here. This is more adding tones and kind of getting an idea of what your dry brushing on the lighter color is going to look like. But it does really bring out a lot of that texture, you can see. Just make sure you don't go straight from the paint to your piece. You'll want to at least dab it off a little bit. And it's not bad to have swipes and swoops, and you want to go in different directions, because this is also a tanned hide. There's been some weathering. It's a tent, so it's been in of course, the rain and the snow, and you'll want it to look a little worn and rugged. All right, so now we take the lighter color, and this can be, again, your preference. This is more of kind of a light, really it's kind of a light tan. It looks gray here, but it kind of comes off as more tan, so I like to use it for highlighting. And this, you'll just want to get it a really light dry brush to show just some more weathering. You don't have to go over all of it. You can just go over certain parts depending on how you want to present it. A lot of times you can make the bottom of the tent darker to show that it's been touching the ground a lot more, and maybe it's more sun-dried or bleached on the top. You'll just want to go over this lightly until you get the desired effect. All right, now I've got another, it's more like a chocolate brown. This is a really dark brown. And I'm just going to go over the posts with this. And you can get also, again, you can vary the detail that you want to do on these posts. But I like to make sure that I get them a decent contrast between the actual hide and the supposed wood posts that are in there. You can use, again, dry brushing techniques and add in a little yellow to get some streaking depending on what kind of effect you want to get on your posts. And that's why right there you can see that if you want to avoid having any of the the writing show through from the posts, because one side says advanced deployment, the other one says dungeon crate. You want to face those inside. Go ahead and let that dry. All right, so now just for a little bit more realism, I thought this would look kind of cool, is I wanted to make tent pegs. So all I did was take a little toothpick and I cut off a little section of it and hot glued it to the end there. Now those work really great, but the problem is they're also very fragile. They're fragile, I'm telling you. And so anytime you want to move these or transport them, you're going to want to be really careful, or just have your hot gun, or just leave them off if you want, because they do tend to break off, unless you can find a better way of gluing them, maybe making them smaller so they're just there, more like pips or something, so that they're not quite as long as what I have pictured here. But I thought it was a good effect. And yes, I've had to re-glue them on a couple of times already, and I haven't even played with them yet. We just making them and transporting them from the table. So you can go ahead and put 4 of those on and see how they look. All right, that's it. That's how you can modify your tent from Dungeon Crate's second box, the tent and campfire set right there from Advanced Deployment. We'll see you next time on Worlds of Wanecraft.